Hey there, viewers, and welcome back to Grumpy Monkey Garage, where we're coming at you from inside the shop, so you may hear technicians working over there. But we wanted to shoot a video talking about the salvage yards because I've had two really good experiences in here, and I always like to talk on a positive note, but I've also had some bad luck with salvage yards, so I wanted to kind of go over them today.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna take you traveling the world. I gonna love you. Yeah, I'm gonna love you. I'll give you the whole of what I've got. The fancy things, baby, I have not. Just gonna love you. Yeah, I'm gonna love you. I'm gonna love you, baby. Cross my heart and hope to die.
So first I'd like to identify what a salvage yard is for us. So a salvage yard and a scrap yard, people will use those terms interchangeably, and they're not the same thing. So a salvage yard is a junkyard where you will take a car that is getting parted out, and they will part it out, and they will sell the parts off of it. A scrap yard is they are going to put it in a crusher and turn it into a pancake and ship it overseas to get remanufactured into something else. So that is the difference between the two. Salvage yard, you're going to buy parts from. Scrap yard, things go to die at the scrap yard. That is the difference. At least for the purposes of this video, terminology may change elsewhere. Scrap yards, where we live, are crushers. Salvage yards, junkyards. All right? So what I think a salvage yard should be for is an affordable solution to keep older cars on the road. So as cars get older and they change owners multiple times, the guy who buys an $800 car doesn't want to put a $1,000 axle on it. He might want a $300 axle when the rear end goes out. Things like that. So it's made to be affordable to try to keep costs low so that you can keep the cost of ownership down to keep going with these old cars. And I think they do a really good job of that mostly.
Yeah.
The ones around here at least, like in the other room, I've got a 2002 Toyota Camry that went to another shop, and we've named the other shop Joe the Crackhead because I don't understand what went wrong with this car. But he ended up tearing the engine up. He stripped out a bunch of head bolts on it, and it is the 2AZ engine, so it is kind of a common problem, which is why I never do head gaskets on them. If you blow a head gasket on a Camry, you're getting sold an engine. Here, we're not doing it because it's going to end up in an engine, which is exactly what happened here. So we put an engine in it. I found a used one at a local salvage yard and put it in, and it runs beautifully. For now, we're still on day one of it running good, but I don't hear any knocking or anything, so I'm convinced it's good. In the other bay, we have a 1999 Toyota Camry getting a transmission. It's Camry week, apparently. But those two cars are older, 99, 2002, so around 20 years old.
Yeah.
A new transmission was $5,000. Well, those cars are hitting the value of $5,000, so that's going to total it out. But at the salvage yard, Camrys are reliable. So the transmission, the engine, the 2.4 is actually hard to find because so many people run them out of oil, blow them up, and then they need a new one, right? So they'll buy all the used ones.
Really?
Yeah, so there's actually an oil consumption problem. We did a video on an oil burning problem on one of the first gen 2.4s. Yep. And that's one possibility, but there is actually a known recall on them for piston rings going bad on the second gen, so the 020 engines with the 2.4s. And they would just consume their own oil. And Toyota did a recall campaign. They were putting engines into cars for free for like 2 years, and then anybody who didn't get done in those 2 years, get bent.
Yeah.
So that's how that went. But anyway, so those engines are now getting rare to come by. But transmissions, we had 9 of them in our local salvage yard, like $250. $3,000 for a new one, $250 for a used one. Well, what's the average person going to choose? This Camry here almost has 300,000 miles on it. The transmission we're going to put in has 165. Literally almost half the mileage, and this one worked. Yeah. This dude didn't take care of this car at all. Like, that was the original filter we took out of that thing. Wow.
I guess when you go to the junkyard to buy parts, you kind of have to calculate the risk, because and a lot of times it's definitely worth it. I mean, I've bought plenty of parts from the junkyard and put them on my car or other people's cars, like customer cars and stuff like that. And I mean, very rarely does it not work, especially if it's something like a headlight. Like, if you want a headlight, it could be pretty expensive.
You're talking about the assembly, I assume.
Yeah, the assembly,
so
not the actual light bulb, but like a headlight assembly.
Not these. We keep
not
these in
those.
stock.
Yeah, but like a headlight assembly. A lot of times some of these parts where it's not a lot can go wrong.
Well, also you can look at it and tell it's bad.
Yeah, exactly.
If
Same thing with the radiator a lot of times.
Yeah,
if
somebody's
it's got a hole in it, then
somebody slaps a deer and they need a headlight and a bumper. Well, absolutely, Salvage Yard is going to be a solution. It's going to keep you under budget.
Yeah.
You don't have to make that big insurance claim. It's going to be ridiculous. You put $100 bumper and a set of $80 headlights in there, and it's good. Now,
one thing I used to do a lot of times back when I was working for you full time.
Now he's a fancy pants. He's got his own channel now. Can you believe that?
I do video work and photography now, but back when I was doing this, I did a lot of body work and I painted a lot of cars. And what I did hate was going to the junkyard to pull parts. To me, it wasn't worth it personally because
you spend so much time.
Exactly. You're not gonna, 9 times out of 10, you're not going to find the right color.
Yeah.
And if you do, it's going to be dinged up, and the customer wants it to look perfect.
Yep.
And so sanding it down takes a while, priming it takes a while. It was so much easier for me just to go to a
aftermarket
parts provider, exactly, and get the right parts that are pre-primed, where all I gotta do is just put the paint on it and it's good to go. But if you're somebody who doesn't really care so much, you're just looking for a part, it doesn't have to match. It is a way cheaper solution.
Or if you're willing to be patient, if you ding the fender against your mailbox and you've got a Jeep Cherokee, there are a million Jeep Cherokees in the world. Eventually they end up in the salvage yard, and you might be waiting on a red fender and they don't have one right now, but then 4 weeks from now they get one in. That was totally worth the wait for you. But as a shop, if somebody comes in, I need this fixed, they don't want to wait 4 weeks. I don't want to have their car in the parking lot for 4 weeks. So I think it's more of a DIY solution for parts like that. But for engine and transmission, DIYs usually don't attempt that on their own. That's usually, I'm sure there's car nerds out there who are like, I did my Subaru engine in my driveway. And I fully believe you. This is not preaching to you. But for the average DIY, they're not going to attempt that. What they're going to do is they're going to bring it to me, and then they're going to want it for affordable because
there comes a point where like DIY can only take you so far. YouTube videos can only take you so far. If you're changing out something massive,
like an engine or transmission,
yeah, you might as well just take it somewhere else, because there's so many things that you could do wrong, or you might as well just take it somewhere else.
Well, I think there's a varying degree. Everybody starts somewhere.
Yeah.
So this is a good point here. I had my Toyota 4Runner as my daily driver. Yeah. But I got my Chevy truck as a project. The one we did the review on the Chevy truck, that's mine. If it would have had
that will be
there's a link to that
showing up right now, or if you don't see it in the description.
But that truck, if it had a bad transmission, I had something else to drive.
Yeah.
So could I have used it as a learning experience? Absolutely, because I had 2 cars.
Yeah.
How many people do you know have an extra car? You don't have an extra car, right?
No.
So if your transmission goes bad, you're just going to bring it up here anyway. And I'm going to make you do it, because I'm not going to do it. But, so I think that the salvage yard has a place for professionals, which is, rear end, transmission, and engine. I think most of that the professional shops are going to buy, and basically everything else on the car is going to be bought by the DIY side. I'm not going to sell you a used alternator.
Yeah.
This is not going to. That's stupid of me. I would rather just pay the extra $50, get the correct alternator that comes with a warranty that I can warranty for the customer.
What would you say is the threshold of parts that you would buy from a junkyard, or parts that you would buy used, or not used, new?
I think I was literally at engine, transmission, and rear end. I would consider used options. Maybe if it's something weird, like let's say you've got like a rare car and you need a taillight, and a new one is like $1,000, or some of the BMWs and the Kias with the LED taillights, and you could tell if they work at the salvage yard, just hit the brake and did it work? So since you can tell if those things work, I would definitely say you could buy those from a salvage yard as a shop. We buy a lot of we have a video, a Corolla bearing. We bought a bearing from a junkyard. Our press is down. We still don't have a new press. But we buy bearings. I've got a spindle back here off of a Honda. I just make this ridiculous spike in there.
Thanks.
So a hub bearing like this, I would definitely recommend buying from a salvage yard. This one doesn't have anything wrong with it. It doesn't have any play. It doesn't make any noise. I think it's good to go. So these sometimes, if you're a DIY or even if you're a professional and you don't have time to press this, you just want to take it off, swap it out. Especially we're mobile mechanics. We're going to go to people's houses. You can't bring a press with you. You're going to set that up and bolt it to their driveway? No. So bring in a whole knuckle assembly that is good, and then just swapping it out saves you time. This is frequently a cheaper option. This is on a 99. If you have a 99 Honda, you don't want to
I don't know if they can see that, by the way. You might want to lift it up a little.
There's a spindle assembly. There we go. There you go, kids. That's enough of that.
Cool.
I'm going to drop it.
Yeah.
Okay, that's
all
good.
right.
That's good. All right,
good.
so spindles, engine, transmission. I don't really see anything else that I would buy from there. Headlights, taillights.
Now, what are some of your serious frustrations with?
All right, so getting into that.
Yeah.
Obviously, it's an affordable solution. We talked about that. We've talked about, you know, engine, transmission, and something that goes with that is it needs to be quick. It needs to be honest. So I don't want to call the salvage yard on Monday and say, hey, I got a customer here. I need an engine for this Camry.
Yeah.
And I say, yeah, we have one. And what they mean is they have a Camry with an engine still in it and no idea if it runs. So they told me they had it. They're not. And this is a hypothetical situation on this particular car. I didn't have this trouble with this car. I've had it with another car. They said they had the engine. I get there. It doesn't run. I'm like, yeah, well, it was running when it was wrecked. Valid. But I don't want to take the risk on it. Why didn't you tell me we have one? We don't know if it runs. They could just tell you that over the phone. And somebody who's on a severe budget, maybe it's worth taking the risk.
Yeah.
But for me, I have to warranty all my work to my customers. I can't take a risk. I want to make sure it runs good. I want it rated, and I want it on the shelf. So when I show up in my truck, a forklift puts it in the bed, and I'm ready to go. I'm not a team of 6 hillbillies that just used a weed whacker to get this thing out of the engine bay. I don't need that. That is not what I needed. Let's talk about your RAV4. Because before we leave the bodywork subject and go on to just mechanical, let's talk about that.
Yeah. Which review coming soon, by the way.
All right. So here's a RAV4. I found it. Customer of ours, wonderful customer, by the way. They probably watch our videos, so we know who you are. You're awesome. And their kid wrecked it.
Yeah.
Pretty
Bad,
good.
Major.
Pretty good.
I mean, I'll show you. I'll show the pictures, but like the whole front end was smacked all the way to the.
All the way to the firewall.
Yeah, I mean, it was just rough, and the front frame was crushed beyond repair. I mean, it was just annihilated. The airbags went off, the seatbelts broke, and even the window was just like shattered.
Windshield.
And the windshield. The windshield was shattered in one.
Well, the windscreen for those of you overseas.
But yeah, it was pretty rough.
But it was given to me at my favorite price, free.
Yeah.
And it was a Toyota, so it only had 340,000 miles on it.
Yeah. And
so it wasn't even broken yet.
I mean, they did say the engine still ran.
Oh.
Yeah, they said that the engine still ran.
Well, it ran when they wrecked it, but they didn't run afterwards.
No, they said it ran afterwards.
Oh.
Yeah. Yeah, they said it ran afterwards.
I don't remember that part. I just know it's a 2-liter, and you can't kill a 2.2 or a 2.0 Toyota. You literally can't do. There's a whole Top Gear episode trying to kill a Toyota with the 4-cylinder like that, and you just no killing them.
They're pretty awesome. Yeah, but again, we went to the junkyard, and literally it took us forever to find one, because a lot of them are still on the road.
They're not dead.
It's crazy. I mean, some of them are over 25 years old now in that generation.
First gen. It's a 98.
Yeah, it's a 98. So it's just nuts that it's so hard to find parts for this thing.
Well, the good news is we did find it in the front end. This is one of the salvage yard's benefits is we were able to buy an entire front clip for like, what was it, $475 for like
it wasn't that bad, and they literally cut off the entire front end with a saw.
They used a giant concrete saw and just yeeted it behind the windshield and just sold us the whole front car.
And so we were able to pull parts off of that, and I got just about everything I needed. I mean, the only thing that I had a problem with out of all those parts, the only thing was the radiator. Everything else was fine. And the radiator, I mean, again, it wasn't that big of a loss. And I just got a new radiator, hooked it up, and there was no issue after that.
It was $38 used for that radiator.
Yeah. So, I mean, it was worth the risk. Out of everything that we got, I mean, in the end, we saved so much money.
Yeah.
And it was 100% worth it. And, of course, like, I know how to paint, so I sanded the parts down and repainted it, and now it looks not perfect, but I wasn't really going for perfect. I was just going for good enough.
It does look really good. I think when we do the review on that car, I think that it does look really good.
Mm-hmm.
I think it looks better than a lot of the 25-year-old been in accident cars.
Yeah, because it's been in multiple accidents.
It
was in accidents before in the rear,
but it looks good.
It does look pretty good.
All the doors open and close like they should.
Yeah.
You know, the hood opens and closes kind of like it should.
I mean, you have to hit it pretty hard, but other than that, like it's
good.
fine. Yeah.
It keeps the rain off the engine. It's fine.
Shuts. I mean, it's great, and I mean, I use that thing every day. I drive a lot for my photography because I do a lot of real estate, and it gets me to and from.
Yeah. And we did it very affordably because of a salvage yard. So drawing that back into the salvage yards, I think
That's a different video.
Yeah, we'll get into the review of your car.
Exactly. I'm excited.
Review. Our Toyota reviews do really well, and I have nothing negative to say about it except the rear door, but we'll get to that. Again, that's part of that review. Back to salvage yards, that's a good example of what, when you have your own vehicle, that's what it can be for.
Yeah.
But if that was a customer car, you couldn't warranty none of that.
Yeah.
You'd have been like upside down on it, and if the insurance is paying for it, they're not going to pay for used parts. They want new OEM, and they probably would have totaled that car if they'd have seen it.
Yeah.
Because both airbags deployed. Oh, yeah, we got both airbags at the salvage yard as well, and they worked fine.
Yep, just fine. Really, no issue. So, although I did find out one of the airbags...
Not like we're testing them,
Yeah,
but like
exactly.
they plugged in the airbag lights off.
So it's fine. One thing, though, to mention is the steering wheel. That airbag actually has a recall, so I need to get it recalled.
All the Toyotas do now for the Takata airbags, I think they're called.
I think it is. I don't know, but I got
It's one of
something
the
in the
brands.
mail about it. So that's another thing to look out for, is recalled stuff or whatnot. But again, it's like you have to calculate that risk. Is it worth it? And I think...
Well, to you it was.
Sometimes,
You know,
yeah,
it was
definitely
affordable
was.
transportation. I mean, he had a Nissan and that was a piece of junk. We did a review on the Sentra, and I will say that it's still a very affordable Honda Civic.
Yeah.
But it is not a Toyota Corolla.
Yeah. You don't get the
Toyota Corolla's the
reliability.
bomb.
You do not get the reliability. But for a year, it got me where I wanted to go.
And then you buy it for like $800.
Yeah.
It's cheaper than a car payment, so right there paid for itself. It's
Exactly.
good. But let's talk about the labor claims. A lot of salvage yards don't do labor claims. I really wish they would. So when they sell you a bad transmission, you can get your labor back, because a lot of what happens, and I take it out on the customer. I give them the option. If I put this in and it doesn't work, the part is free, but you still have to pay the labor. I have to pay everyone who works here. I can't just be like, hey guys, that didn't work, so you aren't getting paid this week. Can you imagine? Like,
Yeah.
no
You
one would
wouldn't have
work
anybody
here.
working.
Yeah, no one would work
No, no one would do that. Yeah.
So I definitely think they need to start doing some sort of labor claim, because when I have to eat the cost difference, it's really, I take it out on the customer. You're going to have to pay labor twice.
Yeah.
The one I put in is bad.
And as long as you let them know beforehand, it's like
I
they
put it
might
in the
be
paperwork.
willing to make that,
Yeah.
risk. So
Well, sometimes it works out really good. Like, for instance, the Camry we're doing the transmission on, $5,250. I could literally do like 8 of these before I got to this being cost effective. So it's definitely is still worth it, and you need a really reliable bad salvage yard stories time. We're at the end, so now we can have some story time. I got sold 3 bad transmissions to the Ford Ranger we did the review on.
yeah.
You remember that?
Yep.
3.
I remember that.
It's a 96 Ford Ranger. It's automatic. They all have bad transmissions, or people keep them long enough for the transmissions to go bad is probably the best way to word that. Because a 3-liter is pretty invincible. I don't see too much trouble out of that. But I went to a salvage yard. They sold me a transmission for $500, which is pretty good, fair market value on that transmission. Took it home. Had the guys install it because I was doing a transmission on an S10 that we did a review on.
Yeah.
We've done a lot of reviews on cars that I've done major work on. But anyway, so I was doing that. They were doing that one, and it was just horrible. It was horrible to get it out. You got to go over this cross member. We couldn't get the exhaust off because it was so rusty, so we were working around it. It was just awful. We get the new one in, we fill it up with fluid, and it only had reverse. No, it would only go one way, but not the other. I don't remember which one it was, but it was screwed up, and I was very mad. I called them, and they only gave me a 10-day warranty. I was like, hey, it's bad. And they're like, oh, well, it needs to be back by Monday at 5 for it to count. And by the way, we're not open on the weekends. Great. So I took it out Monday morning. I was up there. Where's transmission? Then they come out and they're going to inspect it to make sure it wasn't screwed up.
In other words, they just don't want it back. They just wanted to give it to you.
They wanted to find any reason to not have to pay it back. And you know what? I understand within a certain amount of reason checking it, because what if the idiot bought it and
broke it
trying to install it, and then that's on you, dude. You broke it. But
And I'm sure they deal with a lot of crap like that.
they do.
But it's just kind of frustrating. If I were a shop, what I would do is I'd keep a tally, or I'd write down, my experience with these different places. That way I know where to go. Because I mean, I've called places for parts, like junkyards, asking them, hey, do you have this? Because if they know what they have, I'd much rather, they tell me if they have it or not than me spend a whole day searching a junkyard to see if they have the part that I need. But they just will never get back with me.
Well,
I mean, I've called places like 4 times the same day. Hey, you said you'd get back with me. Did you find it? Oh, I haven't looked. Or, oh, yeah, I kind of forgot about it.
They haven't looked is the real thing.
Exactly.
I think that goes into the different types and the categories. You know, the cheapest salvage yard is not always the best. I use a lot of the high-end salvage yards around here. Actually, you know, I don't deal with the dirtbag, crackhead, hillbilly ones because I don't have time for that. I don't want to be sitting waiting on a phone call back.
Yeah.
I don't have time for that. So,
yeah, exactly.
You know, I want the customer to have a good, reliable one. I've had a 100% success rate with one of the salvage yards around here. I've never been sold a bad part.
Really?
They're twice as expensive as everyone else.
Hey, but you know what you get.
I've never had a bad part.
Yeah. And that's stuff to remember. Like, you've got to keep track of that sort of stuff because you don't want to get, like, screwed over and over and over.
The problem with them is they have a limited amount of yard space and everybody knows they're good, so they crush out a lot of the old cars. So, like, if you get a 94 in there, parts are gone tomorrow. Engine's gone, trans is gone, doors are gone, everything off that car is gone, and it's getting crushed out. Because, like, there's a list you can get on, so where when, you know, a car comes in, you get on that list, you get an email, hey, it's here, then the next day, all the parts are gone. Like, it is like vultures, and they have high turnover. So what they have a lot of is newer wrecks. So the company around here, this is Georgia, they pull for the police department. So if there's a bad wreck, right, they'll pull the car, and they'll hold it in impound for the investigation or for the insurance to come total it out. And a lot of times the insurance goes, just keep the stupid thing. Yeah. You know, we don't want to deal with it. Either auction it off or get rid of it. And you know, they'll either auction it off and other salvage yards will buy it, or if they auction it off to themselves and they end up getting it, great. You know, but they'll have a lot of cars that way. So you'll have a lot of new model wrecked cars. So if it's wrecked, if it's rear-ended, it's front-wheel drive, engine and transmission, you could drive around. It's going to make scary as hell noises, but you can drive around the yard. All right, it runs good, it doesn't overheat, and the transmission goes into gear, so we can sell these parts, and they will. And I've had really good luck with them because of that. So I think they have like the ultimate hookup. They're a tow company and a salvage yard, so they get like fresh kills. Yeah. They know if it runs and drives. They're not just a salvage yard. That really helps them out, and they're super expensive because of their reputation. So if you're thinking of starting a salvage yard, which I really ought to, I pretty much already do.
Yeah, I was about to say, I mean, just look around. There's so much stuff. You probably could, but...
I literally have a spindle of a Honda I don't have.
What's the takeaways that you'd say from today's video?
That salvage yards are a great solution to keep cars on the road, but that you need to really do your research so you don't get burned. I think reviews are the way to go. Although you got to take that with a grain of salt. You know, I think that 80% success rate is where they should aim. You know, you can't check everything. You know, PCMs, ECM, you know, the car's wrecked. You know, what are you going to do? In a 80% success, I would consider acceptable, but I mean, I had 3 strikes against that one with the bad transmission. There's literally no reason to get 3 bad transmissions, and then the other customer with the 4Runner bought the engine for. Whenever you do an engine swap, I always try to do timing belt, water pump if it needs it, and then like rear main seal, and like if it needs valve cover gaskets, I'll do that too. Pulled the valve covers off on this thing, and it was literally chunky. Like, how would you describe this thing? It looked like
sludge.
It looked like the bottom of a fireplace.
Oh.
Like it looked like that, like dust, like dry, like it wasn't even oil. And I was like, I think the car was on fire. I think it was a fire car.
Yeah. And
it's completely toasted. And then when I had the oil pan off, because you had to take the oil pan off to do the rear main on these 4Runners, it was a 2nd gen. The oil pickup was completely blocked with sledge, and you could take the crank and go, move the crank back and forth. The crank's not supposed to move.
Gosh.
I was like, dude, you need to take this back. Well, I told him to take it back. He takes it back. They won't give him his money back because it's been taken apart. I'm like, to warranty this, you have to do timing belt, water pump, rear main seal. That's general courtesy to the customer.
Yeah.
You have to do that. And this is what I found. I stopped because, you know, I knew they weren't going to do a labor claim. And they would not give him his money back. They charged him $1,000 for that engine. He got burned.
They probably knew it was bad.
They did know it was bad. And that's why I don't use that salvage yard anymore. And I left them a 1-star review. So if you find the review for the 1-star Grumpy Monkey Garage review, you know which salvage yard it was. But I'm not going to commit slander. Because slander, talking poo on the internet is a great way to get a slander charge.
Well,
I've not mentioned their name.
I mean, if it's an honest story, it's not technically slander.
No, I'm telling honest stories, but I'm not using their name.
Okay, well, I mean, you could use the name, but we won't. For the sake of this video, but
I'm trying to be as respectful as possible.
That's true.
I'm not using the name of the popular junkyard either because I really don't need any more competition. I have enough trouble trying to get parts when they're so busy.
So basically, you'd say the U-Pool stuff
Like
is
pull apart,
yeah.
self-pull salvage yards. DIY
That's really
Dan.
for DIY Dan. But
That's not for
the
the
stuff that pulls it for you, or the higher end junkyards, that's really better for a shop, and that's what to go with. But keep track of what they're giving you. If it's junk, just stop going there. And if you
Unless it's a U-pull yard, then you're just a dumbass.
yeah,
You're just pulling junk.
You're the
Like,
problem.
You are the problem. Like, cause like pull aparts and self pulls, they'll buy anything. If you're selling to a junkyard, what kind of condition do you think this car is in? Okay, if it's wrecked, well, that's why it's there.
Yeah.
If it's not wrecked, why are you here? Well,
Yeah.
something's wrong with it. Who junks a perfectly good car? No, they're gonna sell it. But anyway, I think that's our good stories. We told some bad stories. We told some good stories. Hopefully, you learned something from this.
Yeah,
And,
whether you're a DIY or a shop. That's it.
So anyway, take this knowledge and go forth. Be sure to like and subscribe. Grumpy Monkey Garage. Y'all have a good one.
Bye.